Hi guys, and welcome to Real Food. Following my reaction to Lost Highway, we thought it would be interesting to film a discussion about the film itself. I am learning that with TV or film in general, but especially with any kind of David Lynch creation, it helps me process and digest what I just saw to talk about it. So that's what we're going to do here today. Give you our thoughts, theories, opinions. Mostly this is going to be me asking questions because while I feel like I have a handle on the film, there are still things which I'm not quite sure what to make of. So that's what we're going to do. And of course, we invite you to share your thoughts and opinions and theories in the comments below as well. Why don't we start with our history with the film? Do you want to go?
Okay, this is the first David Lynch film I ever saw. I was probably too young for it, 12 or 13. I don't know if you kids know, but back in the day, there was a pay-per-view channel, and it ran movies on one channel 24/7. And then you had to pay to see the movie. And my parents got a box that unscrambled all the channels. And
that sounds illegal.
It was illegal. FBI, if you're listening. And one of those movies that was unscrambled at the time was Lost Highway. And I watched it over and over and over again. So it's the first David Lynch movie I ever saw. I was more of a fan because it's the first time you saw it. Mm-hmm. That's why I included it in one of our intros. And usually how intros work or anything like that is if the other person doesn't quite get what the other person is doing, we just go with it.
Mostly you do the intros, and I'm just here being the clueless one who's discovering many things for the first time. So you're going to be an expert. I didn't realize you'd seen it that many times as like a young person.
It was that. It was Beavis and Butthead Do America. It was The Frighteners. There's a couple other ones I don't want to mention.
Well, and given that you also picked it apart with a fine-tooth comb editing the reaction.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Whereas I'm the polar opposite. I had never seen this film. Obviously, I knew it was a David Lynch film, but that's pretty much all I knew. Now, I will say knowing David Lynch did really help me going into the film. I think my experience would have been much different if I didn't know any of his kind of like favorite things to do.
So, out of what you've seen so far of David Lynch, do you feel like this one is easier to understand?
Oh, well, okay. So that kind of like, that sort of helps jump off the discussion. So I feel like with a lot of David Lynch, and again, I'm new to him in general, but I feel like with a lot of David Lynch, things are much more ambiguous, whereas this one actually feels pretty black and white, I guess. Like, from what I gather, and I do think it's pretty...
as black and white as it can get.
Well, yeah. But I do actually think, like, from what I gather, and I do think it's actually pretty explicit, this is a film about a person who is making up a narrative in their own mind. He's, like, dreaming. He has experiencing a delusion. And we get so many hints of that, like, right off the bat when Bill basically...
I don't have your money here. It's in Bill's house and Fred's house.
Sorry. Fred basically says when he's being asked about why he doesn't like videos, that he likes to remember things his own way. So like right off the bat, we're getting information or hints that like this is a person who is kind of like making things up in his own mind. My first question is,
oh boy,
is this a dream from the very beginning? Because, okay.
Yes.
Let me back it up. Okay. You're kind of, well, okay. I don't know. Okay.
Go ahead.
When I first at the end, when I realized, okay, Peter and Fred are one, I was like, oh, okay, what we witnessed at the beginning was not a dream. And then as soon as we go into the Peter delusion, that's like a dream. And then I thought, well, no, that's not true because we get all the shenanigans at the beginning with like the videotapes on the doorstep. And like, I don't think any of that's real. So is this a dream from the very beginning? And is it simply just kind of like informed by reality, or are there any snippets that we see that are like actual reality? Does that make sense?
I don't think so. And there's a reason I don't think so is because what you mentioned, the videotapes. I'll go back. I think this is how I feel about many of the David Lynch, the later David Lynch stuff. I actually haven't seen Inland Empire yet. So if anyone's interested, you haven't seen Inland Empire, we have a copy of it here waiting for us to watch.
Is this the one with the bunnies or something?
Yes, Laura Dern.
Oh, really?
She's not one of the bunnies, or maybe she is. I don't know. I haven't seen that, and I've only seen the later David Lynch movies. So I haven't seen Eraserhead, and I haven't seen The Elephant Man. So make of that what you will. But I go back to the whole Twin Peaks. We live inside a dream, and to me, it's not a dream of like honk shoe, I'm a sleeping person. It's more like I live inside my own mind. I live inside my memory. I live inside the lie I've created for myself. And I feel like from the beginning, he's already in jail or he's on his way to death row. And he's
fabricating this in his own
not
way.
only that, but he's like, you know, when you think about something you've done, it's going through your mind over and over again.
Well, that's what was
and the way
bizarre
you think
to me.
about things, you don't think about them from start to finish. You kind of think about it all jumbled up together. And if he's trying to lie to himself and he knows the truth, it's always going to be sort of in the back of his brain, which is like the videotapes, which is the mystery man, right?
That's what was bizarre to me, is I'm like, well, if you were just fantasizing about something and trying to make it more favorable for you, why would you picture all of the things at the beginning? Like I wonder,
because you would still have the memories of it, until it's too much. And then you retreat
completely shut off.
You completely retreat.
Because I wondered whether like the moment where we see him actually getting charged with murder was real. But it's probably just informed by reality, but warped in some way.
It's just the way it happens is so bizarre. Because it's like he's in the interview and then it's almost like there's a voiceover and he's walking downstairs and it's very dreamy, like a memory. It's not like we're seeing it actually happen.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of murder in the first degree.
And even the way it goes from like, what has happened? Like he can't find her, or he doesn't find her body or anything like that. It goes from like a punch. Like all of a sudden we're in like, we're at the cops and we're being interrogated.
Yeah, because I think, isn't that when you see the video of like his wife basically torn in half? And then all of a sudden we jump to like him getting arrested or whatever.
It's like a bunch of fragmented memories.
I just wondered, like, if you're creating a fantasy, why would you even incorporate that into the fantasy? But I guess to your point, it's like those are still his memories, which are like creeping in, and then he kind of like warps them in.
If you're trying to lie to yourself,
he tries to run away. If
you're kind of trying to lie to yourself to the point of like you're in jail, let's say, or you're in the electric chair waiting to be, because like the end of the film when he's driving.
Yeah.
Right? And he's going crazy and it looks like he's being electrocuted.
Yeah, I did
you know what I mean?
read that.
And also there's that whole like, this is a very David Lynch thing, electricity. You know what I mean?
Well, and let's be honest, every single person on the planet skews things in their own way, in their own mind. Like no one is actually perceiving, to varying degrees.
We're all false.
Touching on like, I think as far as David Lynch things go, this one actually makes it pretty obvious that this is about a person whose psyche is like split.
There's like, I think there's two obvious lines. The one you said, and then there's the one that the mystery man says later on when he's Pete and we get the repeated dialogue from the party when he's talking to Fred.
Oh, it's like, you know,
all of a sudden Mr. Eddity, like it's like, yeah, he says, oh, here, I'll find the line. The mystery man says to Pete, like, he's like, we've met before, haven't we? The same thing to Fred. But then he also says, in the East, the Far East, when a person is sentenced to death.
When a person is sentenced to death, they're sent to a place where they can't escape, never knowing when an executioner may step up behind them and fire a bullet into the back of their head.
Which is kind of like what's happening throughout the film. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe the bullet is being electrocuted. You know what I mean?
But there's lots of other ones. You pointed out one to me, which I thought was really clever. And again, this is something I don't think I noticed in the moment, but it's like obviously right there when you watch it again. When I think it's right before they reveal the murder of his wife, you see shadows and you see very clearly two sets of legs walking by.
Yeah, you mention it, you comment on it.
Oh, did I?
In the reaction, you messed up. You're like, two sets of legs, and that's him with.
Oh, yeah, two legs.
We were saying that's him with the mystery man. So he had killed her, like he had gone into the darkness, a very Twin Peaks The Return shot of someone walking into darkness instead of Coop walking out of the darkness.
Right.
There's a lot of that. But it's like, yeah, he goes, clearly he's about to
Go do a
kill
murder?
her, like the darkness takes over.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. That's smart. Yeah.
Or I guess. And that's because we don't see her after that, because she's like, Fred, looking into the complete
Okay.
darkness of the thing.
Okay.
And then it's the next morning, and then he's got the
Video?
The video.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because there are lots of other hints too. He then later complains about his head hurting. He's like, my head hurts.
Well, if we want to go back to the two sets of legs, like part
Yeah.
before she's like, there's like two people walking, and
Yeah.
there's a shadow before she gets murdered. Well, where we can figure out she gets murdered. There's a part at the very end where Mr. Eddie, Dick Laurent,
Yeah.
is in the desert. He's like come out of the trunk.
Yeah.
Right, and he says, "What do you guys want?"
What do you guys want?
The
Yeah.
two of them.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's where we're making the connection, that's where the mystery man kills Dick Laurent. I think we're supposed to know that too. That's where she was murdered.
Then?
No. Back with the two shadows walking.
Oh. What?
I've confused her.
Yeah, I don't actually get what you're
You
saying.
all know.
Okay.
No, you come to know the two shadows things.
That's what the beginning, though. What you're talking about is at the end.
Yes, but I'm saying that's why the connection's made. That's
Oh,
what the two
when
murders.
we see them together.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, and like there are lots of hints that there's two people in one here. So yeah, Fred, when he's in jail, is talking about his head hurting. Peter then has a head wound.
Mhm.
Also, I made a comment about like the jazz score, and well, it's like, okay, that's like Fred's signature like instrument, right?
Yes.
And then
Because
that follows.
it's like he doesn't want to be reminded of his old identity.
Right, but it seeps into the scenes with Peter.
And I want to say the same
Is it
thing.
Peter?
Peter, yes. I want to say the same thing about you said about like it asking, is it the dream the whole time?
Yeah.
And you had pointed out in the reaction when it's Peter's it's like the Peter story, and,
Yeah.
and he hears the music.
Yeah.
And
He's
looks
like,
next
turn it off.
And he looks before that. He looks next door, and the dog is there.
That was my other question. So what is that? That's my other question.
It just means that it's all.
But is this like, okay? So here's my next question.
Either they're hearing a dog, like him and Renee hear a dog, and he's incorporated in part of his.
Or is it like he's in jail hearing a dog, and that's
could
being
be. Absolutely, it could be anything like
okay?
that.
Because here's my other question.
That's all just saying. Like all we're saying, like you're asking, like it's just him, like the memory and
It's all
everything.
bleeding
It's
into
all
one
bleeding
another.
into it. Yeah.
Okay, so just to be clear, it's not like he is probably lying in a bed in jail imagining this. It's not like he's interacting with people in the jail as if they were in his fantasy, like
not
Gandhi.
It's not like
Gandhi from Bonai.
Bonai, yes.
You know, please, we're not going to edit this video,
I'm
but if
gonna
you
cut
could get,
to it.
yeah.
Doug Prep Course died 40 years ago.
Okay, so
Or Us. It's not the end of the third act of Us where we're on a roller coaster going, oh.
but I do think it's interesting, again, that there are, so kind of like what we were just talking about, there are lots of elements where it's like, what is really reality versus like what's him being in jail and then that bleeding into his fantasy. So the dog thing was one of them. I'm like, is he simply hearing like a barking dog from jail and that's getting incorporated? It's interesting to me that his house looks very jail-like. If you think about it, it's like a big cement block.
Yes.
Then also it's like in
And
his
yes,
home,
people,
he looks...
it's David Lynch's house. We all know.
No, he just owned it.
He built it with his own bare hands.
No. Okay, also it's like in the house, I remember him looking up at a skylight, and then I
yes,
feel like
the same skylight is
in his
the
jail cell. Well, it's like, so that was interesting to me. And then the dog thing was the other thing I had like that, where it's like, I feel like
You're
it's
right.
elements from the jail
You're right.
actually
So-
seeping into how he's imagining
Right.
things.
Who is the dreamer? Is it Pete or is it?
Don't even get me started with that. I think people are insinuating Fred is the main protagonist.
We
and
don't
then-
know that though. Fred has,
Well, because wait, there's more questions at the end. Wait.
because Pete has the most rounded out life though.
Okay, wait. I have so
Fred
many...
doesn't.
Okay.
Fred, maybe he likes saxophone, but he doesn't do anything else in his house. Like nothing else happens. He
likes
smokes a
saxophone.
cigarette in the dark. That's pretty much it.
Okay. Next question.
Okay.
I was very confused. Again, when I first found out that Fred and Pete were one, and that was
Right.
like, well, what the hell does Dick Laurent have to do with anything?
Mhm.
And then I'm like, oh, I guess is this right to think that Dick Laurent is actually a real person, as is Andy? I think that's the guy with like the party house
Yes.
or whatever. Those are real people.
Yes.
Did Fred murder them all? Dick Laurent, Andy, and his wife?
I don't know about Andy. That's the only one I don't know.
Oh, because he just got hit on. No, he got shoved into the coffee table.
Yeah, so I don't know about him, but that was during the Alice stuff, right?
Well, and here's where I also
Alice was in that scene.
I get confused because it's like it's showing.
The only thing that we know, right, is when the mystery man shows Dick Laurent, Mr. Eddie, he almost like shows like him like the video on like the little TV
at the end.
Yes, what you've almost like here's the reason you're getting murdered because you're with Alice, or sorry, you're with Renee, and Andy is in that shot though. At that party, it's almost to say like we know that you're
right. That's where I kind of thought like, okay, are all of these actually real people? And maybe Fred murdered them all. Even just maybe they were really doing something. Maybe she was doing these kind of like pornos or whatever with them, or could it also again that also have been his mind, and he's simply suspicious of his wife, and so he kills all of these people who he thinks.
All we know is she went to a party and stood around with Dick.
That's what I mean. And so again, I feel like that's where I start to get confused because I was like, well, was that kind of like based in reality?
I feel like that's the only part that
when we see them go to the party,
yeah,
and she kind of like she's with Andy and she's kind of like gives Fred the cold shoulder. Okay, my next question is, okay, there is one scene where we see Dick Laurent calling Pete, and then the Pale Man appears next to Dick Laurent, which confused me because I was like, well, if the Pale Man is actually kind of a part of Fred's psyche, why is he appearing here almost in cahoots with Dick Laurent? Is it because, again, it's just all a part of Fred's mind?
I think that...
Do you know the scene I'm talking about? It's close to the end.
I think that the Mystery Man is a Bob-type entity who attaches himself to anyone.
So do you think it's like kind of like he got possessed?
He didn't get possessed. I think they're just drawn to, and they kind of feel like they...
It's just like, why would they show that if this is in Fred's mind?
Why would they show what?
Why would they show that the Pale Man is in cahoots with Dick Laurent if this is all a making of Fred's mind? Why would he imagine that? Or is that just for us, the viewer? I don't know. I had a hard time putting those pieces together or understanding how that...
I feel like he's around all the time to people who do terrible things.
Okay.
And then when it gets too much and you're too vulnerable and you basically have to invite him in.
Okay,
right?
yeah,
I don't go where I'm not invited or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, like this Dick Laurent didn't seem like a good person.
I feel like it's Twin Peaks where it's like Bob is hanging around all these people and people like, are drawn to, like Leland was possessed by Bob, and he's around like
not good people,
and people are drawn to him also to do that.
I guess what confused me, but I think this is just for the sake of the film, and so there's some mystery throughout, is like there are scenes we see, like for example, the jail guards who discover that the wrong person is in the cell. We see it from like the jail guards' perspective. Well, why would we see that if it's Fred's dream? But I think that's more maybe just like for the film viewer, or to make it more of a mystery, or to not completely spell out that it's like a making of Fred's mind. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, well, why are we seeing this? This is more of like upon rewatch thing.
But I also think that like there's that one part where the jailers is like they're like that wife killer is really messed up.
That's
and
what
they're
I mean.
like, which one? And they start laughing.
Why are we seeing that?
It feels like how Fred sees those people as very
callous
and like they,
Okay, sure. That's what made it somewhat confusing for me to kind of completely
I feel
make
like
sense of.
But I feel like David Lynch does this sometimes, right? Like it's Mulholland Drive.
Don't tell me.
Well, you've seen it.
Oh yeah. I really don't remember very much.
Okay, I'm not going to tell her that. But where you see other characters, like the Winky's Diner people, even though we know Mulholland Drive is all part of Naomi Watts' character's mind, we still see other characters through their perspective. They could mean something or relate back to them somehow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I get it. It just... those were pieces or moments of the film where I was having a hard time.
Right, you believe that the film, if it takes place in Fred's mind, it should only be from his perspective.
Kind of, yeah. And so then I'm picking apart these moments where I'm like, well, why would we see that, or why would we see that?
But don't you think it could be like how, like he feels that they feel about him?
It could be that, or honestly, it could simply be for the sake of the film and the moviegoer, which I'm not mad at, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of along the same lines. If it's okay, if it's all in Fred's head, why do we get this scene at the end with the cops where they're like talking about it? Or is this part not in Fred's head? But I still think it is. But also this part is really weird, and tell me if I'm misremembering it, but I'm pretty sure they're like,
That's Fred Madison's wife with Dick Laurent.
they point to the picture of Renee or Alice or whatever, and they're like, yeah, that's Fred's wife, but all we found was Pete's fingerprints.
We got Pete Dayton's prints all over this place.
Right.
And then they're like, there's no such thing as a bad coincidence. What?
I think there's no such thing as a bad coincidence.
I think that like we're not seeing reality ever, aren't we? We're only seeing.
So you're saying that moment even still is like not real.
If we're seeing it's like, we'll say it's like a loop, right? And it's a man who's just constantly trying to lie to himself and constantly trying to make up excuses for himself, or trying to make like a different life
Yeah.
so he can't face the truth. And if he's already caught and in jail and he's murdered someone, then yeah, there would be like cops. The idea of the cops catching at the back.
Okay, so it is kind of like, and
you're always like, yeah, he's always kind of on the run. Like, yeah.
To your point, it's like people have pointed that out, because I was very confused about like the timeline of all, but people have compared it to like a Mobius strip where it's like it's just an ongoing loop where it's like, well, the timeline is kind of just like repeating or replaying.
I feel like it's someone replaying something constantly in the, like, have you ever gone through something where like you go to bed and you cannot stop
Yeah.
thinking about something and you're constantly replaying things?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is a man who's doing that, but also is trying to protect himself
Psyche.
from the truth.
Well, that also tracks with like what the Pale Man says, like you mentioned, where he's like, in the East, people get sent to this place where they're like, that's kind of like its own special kind of torture where you're just like sitting on death row waiting, and you're probably just like living this in your own mind, and you're just kind of like waiting for your execution, which is kind of, I feel like, what's happening.
Well, yeah, bullet in the back of the brain can also be like, death, right? Could be being caught, but also could be like knowing the truth also.
My last question is just about like the making of the film. Like there are, as I pointed out in the reaction, like some camera angles, for example, that I don't really know what to make of. Like there's one from above I'm thinking of at the beginning where the cops come to see him and he's talking to them, and I was like, is that simply just because it's like again, it's hinting at like this is a dream? You know, when you're in a dream, you kind of sometimes see things that way.
I feel like a lot of the shots with like in the beginning when it's Fred and Renee in their house, they're all like kind of like from above.
Yeah.
They almost feel like security camera shots.
So is that again like almost like a jail thing, or
is it a jail?
like...
It's a jail. Maybe it's a jail thing. That's true. Or it could be like it's the video camera thing where it is the entity floating around and watching and observing.
Okay. The other one that jumped out to me was when he's in the jail being assessed by the jail doctor because his head hurts. It's like on the ground. I thought like, well, and that again would be the polar opposite of like from above. I don't know. These are just things I noticed that felt strange to me, and I didn't quite understand if they were trying to communicate something in particular.
The other one is like you're being watched.
The one from above?
Yeah. Feels like you're being watched, especially in that open room and where it is kind of in the corner. And I feel like this jail one is like you're smothered and you're down and like there's people gathered all over you. You know what I mean? And you feel like they're on top of you and you're, I don't know.
Okay.
I think it only depends on how you feel, like how the shot makes you feel.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, for me, it was just like a sense of uneasiness, or clearly like I'm noticing that something is like not as it usually is. So
and that might be
sort of like kind of like puts you on edge when you're watching. Okay, I don't have any other questions.
Nothing?
No. Do you have a favorite moment or a scariest moment?
Obviously everyone's gonna say the favorite moment, which is like the.
Is there an obvious thing? Because I can't choose.
It's the party scene. The party scene where he says,
okay,
"Call
sure.
me." Like I've known you. Call me. And the pale man sees him, walks up to him, and then almost like the audio goes away, and then it's that great part where he calls him on the phone and everything. That's awesome. And the laugh and the double laugh.
Yeah,
of him,
you're right. That's pretty
and then
good.
the phone.
I don't know why.
But I love the stuff of like when Pete, Renee tells him, he's like, he has a headache, and I'll tell two things. The one with the guy who falls on the coffee table. This always, whenever I first saw it, this like, I never looked at a glass coffee table the same way. I always thought of this movie. in my mind's eye, I thought it was something way different, but like that
that's your own
I wanted to, yes, yeah,
You're
I
just
want to remember it
dreaming.
my own way.
You're just dreaming.
The coffee table part, but after that, where and this feels very like Twin Peaks: The Return, where it's like Pete goes upstairs and it becomes I'm going to call it the Lost Highway motel hallway.
Yeah.
Right? And we see a little bit of what that is. Like when, I don't know if you caught this, but because you saw it once, but when I'm watching editing, like when Pete becomes Fred again, and Fred finds himself in that Lost Highway motel, and he walks into a room, and that's when we get like, he goes almost into the past, and we see him kill, or like at least capture Mr. Eddie or Dick Laurent. I just thought that, I love that idea of like, you walk up to an area, you go through a motel room, and you come out some other place. I think that's, I don't know, it captures my imagination.
Okay, I love that.
Do you have any parts?
I think the scariest moment for me, and I don't know why, because it should be the phone call part, but it's not, is when the pale man comes walking from like that log structure in the desert, and he just comes walking towards the car.
Oh, yes, the video camera?
Ew, it's so gross.
He's just walking towards him, and then we just get the shot of Fred with like, it's just a video camera.
I hate it. And that also makes me think of one other question. Does that represent something? Like, what is this weird log structure?
Oh, I thought where the truth is kept.
And that's why sometimes it's on fire, or it's like reverse fire.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like as he's remembering things, the fire goes away. Because that's what I noticed in the reaction. It's like it's like reverse fire. It's like a fire being put out. So maybe because that's at the end, it's like maybe that's when he's forced to reconcile with the truth. And so the fire actually leaves the burning building.
That structure, whatever it
they
is.
call it a cabin. It's not a cabin.
Cabin in the desert or whatever.
Cabin.
It almost looks like it's on a beach, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's where the mystery man is, and where he has his videotape, where video camera where it doesn't lie. My assumption is that because Fred doesn't like the truth is captured on video with this man. Like, he's the only man who knows the truth.
That makes sense. Okay, last thing I want to say, I know I keep saying that, but now we do need to give a shout out to the music in the film. And was Marilyn Manson in this? Is that Marilyn Manson?
Yeah, but isn't he a bad guy though? Yes, it was because you saw the eye.
Yeah, and I thought it in the moment, but I didn't want to say it. I don't know why, because I say pretty much anything that comes to my mind. But like, yeah, okay, so that was
the tone of this. Yeah, we should talk about that. Like the tone of this movie. It's not like the rest of his stuff. I don't feel like. Would you feel, it's not really like,
it's pretty dark.
It's dark, but it has this like, I don't know. I saw a lot of like, in tone wise, Eyes Wide Shut in here.
Oh, I can see that. Yeah.
There's something about when Pete walks into that house and the porn is projected, that black and white porn is projected, or it's like a snuff film. Maybe they killed Marilyn Manson. I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah. Why is it such? Anyways, okay.
It's just rich guys doing gross things and weird things because they can't satisfy themselves anymore.
3 seconds of Marilyn Manson and that's it.
I think everyone wants to watch. Everyone wants to. Well, look at The Return. There's like a couple scenes with Ashley Judd. There's one scene with Michael Cera. Like, everyone wants to be it. There's like Meg Foster at one point. Anyway, this tone, I think it's very different from a lot of things you've done. It feels very, I want to say, if anyone was around for this, the Lionsgate movies in the 90s, in the late 90s, it feels like that. Very, or like, this might tell people where we're from. But okay, like Showcase in the 90s, Late at Night, or Bravo or something like that. That's what this movie kind of feels like to me. Kind of scuzzy.
No wonder I like it.
But like almost like a good version of those movies. I don't know, like California with a K, or Playing God with David Duchovny or something like that.
He's dead.
Fix him.
I'll see what I can do.
Don't know anything what you're talking about, but I do like scuzzy films, and I did love this film, and I actually really like the music, like I mentioned. Whatever that was.
That's from the times where sometimes it, like, I don't know, that felt like very Eyes Wide Shut.
Oh, I liked it. Anyways, I love the film. It definitely begs to be watched again and again and again.
Did it remind you of anything? Could you think of anything you would recommend?
No.
There's two movies that I'll recommend based off of like that line that the mystery man says of like, being trapped, waiting to die or whatever. There's an anthology film called Southbound I really love.
This next one is for all you lost souls. All you sinners racing down that long road to redemption, but heading straight into that pit of darkness up ahead.
It's an anthology, so some of these are hit or miss, but it feels like a nightmare, and it feels very like deserty, and it feels like you're trapped in a night that won't end. You know, I love that feeling, and there's something about that. And if you like any of the new Screams, one of them, I think a couple of the shorts were done by those Scream people. What are they called? Radio Silence or something like that.
What?
If they're not called that, I'm sorry. She has no idea what we're talking
No, I don't.
about. And she loves Scream.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what.
The new Screams.
Yeah, what about it? They made shorts?
The directors.
They made shorts.
They're like a team of director writers, and
that are similar to this.
They made shorts in Southbound, or one.
Oh, we're still talking about Southbound. Got it.
Okay. And another movie I would recommend, where it's like a man I don't know. I shouldn't spoil it, but it's a man almost like.
Yeah, don't give away the ending.
Oh, I'm not giving away the ending of how it connects to this. Okay, Sam was here. This is a great movie to watch on Shudder if you have it. It's an hour and 16 minutes. It's very Silent Hill-ish. It's desert. It's got a great tone. Very third act of Lost Highway. So I'd recommend Sam Was Here and Southbound.
There you have it, folks. Step outside of the Lynch movies and go and watch these recommendations.
Everyone only wants to see and hear about movies they've watched a million times.
I loved
and
it.
That's it. Nothing new.
Okay, stop being sassy. I love the movie. I think it begs for multiple rewatches because, you know, David Lynch is so good at that. There are so many things that can kind of be picked apart and you know, you notice upon rewatches. So I loved it. I loved it. I cannot wait to watch more Lynch films. That's all I have.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else. Unless you guys want us to talk about the movie. If you guys have questions, I have no idea.
Well, please, like, you know, these are sometimes our thoughts and theories and questions.
I just feel like sometimes with reactions, it goes so quickly. You do a reaction, then move on to the next thing. We don't get the chance to like really talk about it.
This has been very helpful for me. As you can tell, this happened actually quite some time ago, and I've just been sitting with a million thoughts and questions. So please let us know in the comments below what your thoughts, theories, opinions are. But that's all for now.
Okay.
See you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye. That was so smooth.
What? Me doing that? Oh, you're making fun of me.